everyone, my name is Narcis Nalcigara, and today is an interesting day because we will learn a theory that may change our perspectives about ourselves. All you have to do is just sit back, relax, and learn. Let's start off this discussion by understanding a wonderful quote coming from Robert Sternberg. It says here, "Success in life does not necessarily originate with academic success." So fun fact, not everyone who were able to graduate in college, take up master's degree, or even graduate in prestigious universities, well-renowned universities, were able to succeed in life. That is because there are other factors, aside from academic skills, that are necessary to become successful in life. And what are those factors? We will soon find out. Now let's take a look at the image in the next slide. So here, what can you say about the image? So as you can see, there is a figure of a man, like a portrait, and then inside the body of the man are things like alarm clock, dollar as a sign of money, magnifying glass. I mean, there are a lot of things. We also have globe. What do you think is the concept of this image? What do you think? Yes, the concept of this image is intelligence. Intelligence is skills in achieving whatever it is that you want to attain in your life and succeed in it. It includes capitalizing your strengths and compensating or correcting your weaknesses. So that is according to Robert Sternberg. Now let's proceed to Sternberg's successful intelligence theory. Now take a look at the words successful and intelligence. So successful intelligence is different from IQ because IQ refers to academic skills, and successful intelligence, on the other hand, are the skills that are necessary to be able to succeed in life. But before going on to the theory, let us, of course, get to know the proponent of this theory. And his name is Robert Sternberg. So Robert Sternberg is an American psychologist and professor of human development at Cornell University whose research focuses on human intelligence. He is a past president of the American Psychological Association, and he became interested in human intelligence because he had difficulty with IQ tests. For this reason, he formulated the Triarchic Theory of Successful Intelligence, or Sternberg's theory of successful intelligence. Now this is very interesting. The story behind the formulation of the theory is very interesting because Robert Sternberg had a difficulty with IQ tests, and so he realized that it was not the proper measurement of his skills and abilities, and therefore he formulated the theory of successful intelligence. Now here it is, Sternberg's successful intelligence theory. Teachers and future teachers, take note of this. So the theory of intelligence points that some students who do not do well in conventional courses. What are conventional courses? For example, medicine, engineering, accounts and finance, and others, may in fact have the ability to succeed if they are taught in a way that better fits their patterns of abilities. We all have strengths and weaknesses, which is why we are unique from other people. Now, for example, I am a math genius. Well, in fact, in reality, I'm not really a math genius. I'm the total opposite. However, I just want to feel it. For example, I am a math genius. And of course, I am good in solving mathematical equations, and that is my strength. But that does not mean that I am also good in addressing real-life problems. I mean, that could be my weakness. So this theory suggests that teachers have a great role in teaching their students by matching their patterns of abilities. Because if teachers would match the patterns of abilities of their students, students will likely succeed in life. So Sternberg's successful intelligence theory is composed of three parts or three types. We have practical intelligence, creative intelligence, analytical intelligence. Now let's discuss first analytical or componential intelligence. Analytical intelligence is closely aligned with academic problem solving and computations. Sternberg says that analytical intelligence is demonstrated by an ability to analyze, evaluate, judge, compare, and contrast. So basically, analytical intelligence, this refers to the academic skills, doing good in most of the subjects, being at the top of the class. And this kind of intelligence is what is measured by the IQ test. So this involves rational, abstract thinking, logical, mathematical skills, and so on. Now, for example, when reading a classic novel for literature class, it is usually necessary to compare the motives of the main characters of the book or analyze the historical context of the story. Now, another example, since I am a student of social studies, and of course, I will give an example that is related to social studies. Now, if you are teaching history, for example, aside from making your students memorize all the historical events, make them analyze the causes of World War II, for example. Next one is we have practical intelligence or contextual intelligence. Practical intelligence, as proposed by Sternberg, is sometimes compared to street smarts. Being practical means you find solutions that work in your everyday life by applying knowledge based on your experiences. This type of intelligence appears to be separate from traditional understanding of IQ. Individuals who score high in practical intelligence may or may not have comparable scores in creative and analytical intelligence. Practical intelligence simply means being smart in the real world, being able to function effectively in a daily basis and coping real-life problems. Now, in school, we have analytical intelligence, and in the real world, we have practical intelligence. Now, the school and the real world are two opposite worlds, which is why we all must acquire knowledge for both analytical and practical intelligence. So I will give a scenario. So a girl went out of her classroom to purchase soda in the canteen. So as soon as she came back, she noticed that something is wrong, and she heard gunshots. However, the girl still crawled through the window, and as a result, she exposed herself to the gunman. On the other hand, there were two kids who also came back from the canteen. So just like the girl, they heard gunshots and they noticed that something is wrong. And so, the friend told his friend that we should go find out what's really happening. However, his friend replied that no, we should run away from the gunshots. And that's what they did. So as a result, they were not harmed. Now, who do you think shows the highest practical intelligence? Of course, those are the kids who run away from the gunshots. The girl who crawled through the window, she showed creative intelligence, but she did not show common sense. So that's it. Practical intelligence is simply common sense. Finally, we have creative intelligence. Now, creative intelligence or experiential intelligence is marked by inventing or imagining a solution to a problem or a situation. Creativity in this realm can include finding a novel solution to an unexpected problem or producing a beautiful work of art or a well-developed short story. Now, creative intelligence, this means the ability to produce new products, new inventions, and even new ideas. Now, for example, a group of men went camping. As soon as they went to the campsite, they realized that they forgot to bring coffee pot. Now, whoever in the group who can brew coffee has the highest creative intelligence. The research conducted by National Research Center on the Gifted and Talented found out that teaching students not only for memory, but for analytical, creative, and practical processing works. It improves achievement assessed via either conventional or performance assessments at all grade levels and in all subject matter areas. In more recent research, it has been shown that the triarchic theory can be applied to improve students' achievement in school. Now, in the traditional ways of teaching, teachers would make the students memorize all the informations in the lesson. However, this theory suggests that if teachers would teach the students how to be analytical, how to be creative, and how to be practical, students will learn better. And this theory was proven effective, which is why teachers and future teachers shall take note of this theory. Now, the real question is, how to apply successful intelligence theory in the teaching-learning process? Well, the answer is teach and test. You have to do both. But how exactly? Let's find out. Now, for analytical intelligence, so analytical thinking occurs when the components are applied to relatively familiar types of problems in their abstracted form or theoretical form. Now, you have to teach your students how to analyze, how to evaluate, how to judge, how to compare and contrast, and how to critique. You have to guide them. You have to facilitate them. So, you will test your student by, for example, asking the students to evaluate the assumptions underlying a logical argument or to compare and contrast the themes underlying two short stories. Now, another example is comparing and contrasting the story of Tom Sawyer. Now, next is we have practical intelligence or practical thinking. It occurs when the components of information processing are applied to highly contextualized everyday problems. So these are the conditions or the situations that you face every day in which you have to apply practical intelligence. Now, you have to teach the students how to apply, how to use, how to utilize, to implement, and to contextualize. And how will you test your students' practical intelligence? Well, take a look at this example. A student might be asked how the lessons of the Vietnam War are and are not relevant to the situation that has arisen in Serbia, or how to apply algebraic techniques to determining compound interest on an investment. Another example is that when you ask your students, what are the lessons that we can acquire in World War II for some of the problems that the world is facing today? So you can do that too. Now, for creative thinking, it occurs when the components of information processing are applied to relatively novel types of problems. What do you mean by novel? This means new or unfamiliar. Now, you have to teach your students, you have to facilitate your students how to create, how to invent, how to discover, how to explore, how to suppose, and imagine. Now, how will you test your students' creative intelligence? Well, for example, a student might be asked to create a poem or to invent a better mousetrap. Another example which I have experienced when I was in high school is that when we were asked to create a different ending of the story Romeo and Juliet. That was fun, that was interesting, and you can do that in your class too. So these are the principles of the theory. Some of the time, teach analytically, helping students learn to analyze, evaluate, compare and contrast, critique, and judge. Some of the time, teach creatively, helping students learn to create, invent, imagine, discover, explore, and suppose. Some of the time, teach practically, helping students learn to apply, use, utilize, contextualize, implement, and put into practice. Now, take note of the phrase some of the time. You have to teach the students some of the time analytically, some of the time creatively, some of the time practically. Because if you will teach the students all at once, they might get confused, or some of the students might not be able to catch up. And moreover, they might learn in narrow testing. And at the end of the day, it's the memory that counts. Now, we also have some of the time enable all students to capitalize on their strengths. How will you teach, or how will you help your students to capitalize their strengths? Of course, you have to recognize their abilities, you have to recognize their strengths, and then you have to create strategies that will match their strength. Okay? Now, most of the time, enable all students to correct or compensate for their weaknesses. So this is a good thing about this theory, because it does not just focus on students' strength, but it also focuses or pays attention to students' weaknesses. Now, teachers must teach their students how to correct or how to compensate their weaknesses. And how shall teachers do that? I mean, they shall create strategies or tasks that will address the weaknesses of their students, and they shall allow their students to practice in the classroom. Make sure your assessments match your teaching, calling upon analytical, creative, and practical, as well as memory skills. So this is very simple. If you are teaching students how to be creative, of course you have to assess them. That is related to creativity, of course. You can't just be teaching the students how to be practical and then you will assess them how to be analytical. That will not make the students learn. Now, next is we have value the diverse patterns of abilities in all students. Now, we all have different conceptions about intelligence. For some people, they think that being able to top in the class is intelligent. For some people, intelligent means being able to create new ideas or invent. Now, as a teacher, you have to value the diverse patterns of your students. You can't just be teaching your students according to your personal will, because that we don't want that, and that will also be biased. Now, you have to consider your students' patterns of abilities for them to learn better and to improve their skills. So that's it. That is Sternberg's successful intelligence theory. Now, did your perspective about yourself or about intelligence changed? I hope so. If you think you are stupid, if you think you are dumb, well, then you are not. And this theory proves that. You are not stupid. All you have to do is to find what type of intelligence you are good at. And that also means that you have to pay attention to your weaknesses, not just your strengths. To further understand this theory, let us determine whether the statement indicates creative, analytical, or practical intelligence. Statement number 1. Jesse, a newspaper reporter who has a knack for making connections with very important people. Statement number 2. John, a college teacher who was recognized for writing a book of poetry. And for the last statement, Trisha, a law student who ranks at the top of her class for her critics of legal cases. Did you answer it correctly? Let's check. For statement number 1, the answer is practical intelligence. So practical intelligence is the ability to apply knowledge in everyday life. And that is what Jessie did with making connections with very important people to facilitate her newspaper reporting. So for statement number 2, the answer is creative intelligence. So creative intelligence allows us to think in new or novel ways rather than in familiar ways. And that is what John has done by writing books of poetry. For the last statement, the answer is analytical intelligence. Analytical intelligence allows us to evaluate and analyze problems and use critical thinking skills. And that is what Trisha did with her strong critics of legal cases. You guys did great. To end this discussion, I will be sharing an inspirational quote coming from Robert Sternberg himself, who formulated the theory of successful intelligence. And he said, "There is no recipe to be a great teacher. That's what is unique about them." I hope that you guys learned something in this discussion, and see you next time. Bye!